Home is where connections are made, memories are formed, and ideas are born. And no one knows home better than NFM. Thanks for tuning in to I Am Home, the podcast that goes deeper than trends and dives into what it means to make your house a home.
Hello, you're listening to I Am Home, the podcast for all things home life. I'm Tyler Wisecup, joined by my co-host who brings the snap to our chat. It's Becca Subbeck.
Hi, Tyler.
Hi, Becca. And our other co-host is with us, of course, Hilary Shutterbug Multiple. Hi, Hilary.
Hey.
This month, our theme is Back to Campus. Today's topic is digital sports photography, which is why you're getting my super lame photo puns, but I'm having fun with them, so we'll roll with it. This episode I'm really excited for. It's going to be a great one for those sport kids parents looking to take some better pictures of your sport activities. We'll talk gear, technique, and much more. But before we get to that, let me tell you why we're even doing this podcast, and that's because NFM is more than just your everything home store. We're in the business of improving lifestyles because your home life should be your best life. And you can learn more at nfm.com. And we have a special guest with us to educate today on this topic of digital sports photography. Welcome, Jeff Douglas.
Thank you for having me, Tyler.
Yeah, so excited for you to be here. Let me introduce you quick. Jeff, you are a longtime NFMer. You are 21 plus years. Are you nearing in on your 22nd?
28.
20. Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
My number was incorrect there. That is embarrassing for me.
Well, 21 plus was right.
Yeah, you had it pretty close.
Technically,
Yeah.
28
Over
years.
20, it's just...
That's insane. So you're closing in on 30 years. So you must be, what, 72 now at this point? My goodness. How's that possible? That's crazy,
yeah,
Jeff.
Yeah.
And Jeff, you are our director of Ecommerce. So you've been in a lot of different areas within marketing, especially on the website side of things. Just have been with NFM for a long while and understand and know the company and bring a lot of education and value and just that pedigree of knowledge and time being here. So we're super excited to have you, not only because of that, but also because you're a proud sport parent and have a real passion and enthusiasm for taking sport photos, which you floated this idea topic probably a few months ago to us. And since we're in this back to campus theme, we thought it made a lot of sense, especially for those folks who are gearing up for sports. I know football's raring to go here in a couple months if it's not already started for some people. I think they're going to get a lot of value from just hearing from you the advice that you have on how to approach sports photography. So excited for you to be here. And I wonder if that's the best place for us to start, is to speak to like how this passion for sport photography started.
Well, it's kind of a funny story, Tyler, because it really kind of boils down to as a kid, I think I have one picture of me playing sports. So I'm like, I don't want.
I'm not going to do that to your kids.
I'm not going to do that to my kids, and I certainly don't want other people's kids to only have one picture.
Sure.
Of them. So that's I say that kind of tongue in cheek as a joke, but it's it's something I like to do. I like to do it for not only my kids but also other people's kids, and they like to be able to post those out on social media or share it on their Instagram, so it's fun to do that. And it's a hobby of mine that I do outside of work, and just really enjoy doing it.
Yeah. I love just the selflessness it feels like from where this came from. But obviously I think part of this is like you're a tech forward guy. You really like
just say what it is. I'm kind of a tech nerd, a gadget nerd, if you will. And I do like the technology part behind it as well, because it's not just the pictures, but it's the, sharing it online. It's the editing, it's the computer, stuff that you do with it as you kind of work through it. But ultimately it's just about the smile I like to put on people's faces once they see the final product. That's what I really like to see.
Oh my gosh, what a Hallmark card we've got here, Jeff.
Anything for the kids.
Well, I mean, that's a great sentiment. I totally appreciate it. But I'm curious, like being like this tech nerd, did it come easily to you when you started like
It did.
approaching this as a hobby?
It did. I mean, I've always kind of done projects with cameras, either through video or through photographs, and really shot a lot more video I did before getting into photography, and it was kind of just a transition because it was easier to share pictures than it is like video production at the end of the day. So, but I also like kind of tying them together at the end too. Like, so I'll do for the team, I'll do not only pictures but also some hype video stuff for the team. That's kind of fun.
Oh yeah, that's super fun.
So put it behind some music and put it out there on YouTube and share it that way too. So there's just a lot of ways to share this stuff once you get it done. And people really like it. So.
Well, I mean, you've got some pretty aggressive looking toys on the table that I'm sure we're going to speak to here in a second. But one of my questions is like, why aren't you just using a phone? Like, we all have like the best cameras in the world in our pockets almost. So I'm curious, like, why you've got these giant lenses that we're staring at. Why aren't you using a phone?
Well, it's a good question. It comes down to, at the end of the day, there's in your phone there's a sensor, and the sensor size of your phone is a lot smaller than the one that are in these cameras. So the larger the sensor you have, it's gonna capture a higher quality image, and it allows you to work in different lower light conditions. And usually when you're shooting sports, like either indoor,
nighttime or
it's always bad lighting.
Oh yeah, that's so true.
Fluorescent.
Yeah.
So the phones have gotten to a point where the software on them can help improve that, but there's very little zoom on those. And as you know, as you zoom in on stuff with your phone, it gets really
Blurry.
pixelated, blurry. It's hard to hold steady. So these cameras just do a really good job of taking care of that problem, at least for now. They say eventually the camera phones will catch up. I know I've seen, they're trying to put telephoto lenses on cameras or on phones at some point, but they're not quite there yet.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that clears that up.
Yeah.
That was
Makes
a stupid
sense.
question. I can't believe I even asked that. All right. I'm going to move on seamlessly to, I'm curious, like, what kind of equipment did you use to get started? Was it, what
I started,
today,
what I have today
kind of
is pretty much the high end. It's the professional level grade. And again, I sometimes like to go big because I don't want to not have the opportunity to have the best quality that's out there. So that's what I've done at this point, but I didn't start there. I started with kind of mid-grade and kind of worked my way up over time as I kind of learned it and made sure it was something I wanted to kind of continue to do. So, you can get in. These are all what they call mirrorless cameras, which means they're light, they're skinny, they're small, they're lightweight. I think you guys are probably familiar with the term DSLR camera.
Yeah.
That's kind of the older format.
Yep.
So they've all kind of been moved and replaced with this format. NFM, we actually sell a wide line of these, and we have kind of a good, better, best selection out there too. There's some where you can buy where that's the interchangeable lenses, and I don't know if my team, they can see them here, but this is an interchangeable lens. They also have what they call a bridge camera, where it's the camera and the lens all in one camera, and those are a little bit lower price for people to get into. And but again, they don't have as good as quality. The sensor is going to be smaller because it allows for that bigger zoom and more of a compact design. But overall, I think you can get in for like a mirrorless camera like this, the body. You can get those from about $700 to $1,000 for just that, and then you have to get into the lens. I think the most versatile lens for anybody getting into sports is this 70 to 200 lens, and the reason for it is it works in really low light conditions, and it's compact, and it just has enough reach to basically see an entire basketball court or volleyball court or most of the infield of a baseball or softball field. And then if you move around on the football field like I do, you can pretty much see everything. I also like a bigger lens, which you can't see on camera now, but this one here, this is a 200 to 600 range. And that one really allows you to get people in the outfield, closer up images to the pitcher or different players on the field for football. You can shoot all the way across the field and get the quarterback. And that's a real big part of photography, is kind of framing up your photo and making sure you get, you're telling the story through what's in there. And then you try to crop out anything that's just, not part of the play or not part of the story that you're trying to tell.
Yeah.
So
are you interchanging between those as you're shooting an event, or do you
I do.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the real fancy people on this island, I'm not quite there yet. They actually carry around two cameras. So they have the camera, they have one camera lens on one body and one on the other. I'm not quite all in on that yet, because that's probably more of
lot of money.
people that are actually making money doing this. I'm not making any money, so I swap them out. I usually shoot the big lens when it's daylight. For football games, usually early in the fall, like I can get through almost the whole game with the big lens. But as you move through fall, it gets darker earlier, the lights come on.
Yeah.
And so first half this lens, second half that lens, and then eventually I just have to use the small lens throughout the whole thing. So and the reason for that is the smaller 70 to 200 will just captures more light.
Yeah.
And because it's not as large of a zoom on it. So this is kind of my go-to. It's just more versatile. It lets me shoot anywhere. I've shot state football, state basketball, state soccer, all with this lens. It's just really easy to kind of haul around and use. It's a lot, and it weighs a lot less too.
And is this all self-taught? Like, did you learn about the equipment through your own research and like how you work with different types of lighting?
Yeah, it was. And that's really the great thing is that, with the advent of the internet, which I obviously has been around for a while now, but is you can pretty much learn anything on YouTube, right? You can go out to YouTube and you can search for the brand of the model of camera that you have and the sport that is that you're trying to shoot for, and just say like, in this case, it's the Sony A9 baseball tips. And then you'll find all these videos and you watch it, you see what their settings are, and then you go try it out. And that's really, really how I figured out is you just got to get out there and try things and kind of remember what you did and then go back and look at what your results were. And then, you can also click on a button on your phone, the little eye symbol. I'm sure you've seen that like on the photo, and it'll tell you all the settings of what that was shot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you've spent time.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time. Like, for example, for most games that I shoot, for most football games I shoot, I'll shoot minimum 1,000 pictures a game. And I'll usually keep about 10% of those photos as I go through.
Yeah.
And then my goal, and I think the parents and the kids probably appreciate this, is I try to get those photos out the same night. Football games kind of suck because it's like late. You get home about 9:30, 10
hours
o'clock.
long.
And then I usually try to have them out by about 11 because people are still up waiting for them, or they'll get them the next morning.
Can you pretty quickly sort through the ones that are going to,
Yes. And I've kind of perfected a process that I think if people were wanting to do this, because that's really the problem I think a lot of people is they shoot all this stuff and then you never see it because they never take it off their device because they have to edit it.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. So this is the easiest way I have found to do it. And it just requires like an iPad and a USB connector so you can put your SD card in there. And so basically I just plug it in and use the iPhone or the iPad photo app, which is just the default app, and pull up the photo reel, and I just go through and just tap on and select the photos that I want, because you can quickly see all the ones that are good and bad because I take ones. And then you select them all, you download them to the iPad, which takes a couple minutes after you've selected them all. And like I said, there's usually about 100 because it's about 10% of them. And then I go through and I just straighten them out because I look at the horizontal or the horizon and make sure that the horizon's straight, because as you're shooting sports, you're not really paying attention. You're just trying to get the action. Mm-hmm. So I straighten them out and then I crop them and then I save them. That's about all I do.
Okay, so that's minimal editing.
Yeah, it's minimal editing, but and then very once in a while I'll change the brightness on a few of them. But I'm not bringing it into Lightroom or any of those tools, which a lot of people do. Maybe on some things that I want to maybe showcase later, I'll do those. But at this point, people just want the photos and they want to post them and they don't really care.
Yeah, they don't know enough to know that
Yeah, they don't know. And it's going on Facebook, which isn't the best platform at the end of the day with quality anyway.
Right,
so they don't really care.
Wow.
Yeah. But I like to get them out fast.
Well, that's pretty crazy. I'm surprised that like with the tech tools that you're using, that you're not using a platform like Lightroom or something like that to like really dial it in. But it's really just the idea of like the speed of taking the best high quality image that you can, capturing it with the best settings possible by understanding that going into it. And that just takes a lot of the post-production work out of it after the fact.
It does, yeah. And I shoot everything in JPEG mode, which allows you to do that edit quickly on the iPad. A lot of people always talk about shooting in what they call RAW, which is just a format that allows you to tweak like the red, the blue, and the green, like inside of a Lightroom tool, which a lot of professionals do when they're shooting portraits or high-end photos. And I do that when I'm shooting like a state team photo where it's like, I want to make sure I get it right. I don't want to screw it up. I'll shoot what they call a JPEG plus RAW. It'll just record both.
Oh.
So that's how I kind of work around that. But for the most part, when I'm shooting sports, there's really kind of one setting that I kind of stick with. And if you're shooting with a mirrorless camera, a DSLR, like in sports, I shoot in what they call shutter priority. It's just a setting on the camera. And then the camera typically has what they call an auto ISO setting. So you can set your high and your low. And I usually set it as low as it'll go, but then not as high as it go, because the higher the ISO setting, the more grainy those pictures will get. And sometimes in those real low light conditions, they can get pretty bad. So I don't set it all the way, but enough that the pictures don't come out dark in the end.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense. And that's just, was that like you were talking about settings that you were discovering as you're doing research, and you've just kind of gotten to the point where like, I'm automizing this as much as possible so that I can make sure that I can invest more time like capturing the action versus like sitting here playing.
A lot of people like to,
I
mean, some people shoot
like
manual and they're fiddling with their camera on the side, and I'm just there shooting more pictures. So it's all about, I think, really there's one setting I change, and that's the shutter speed. And the only reason I change that during a game is because as the day goes on, it gets darker out, and you gotta go from your really high speed setting down to a lower speed. And so, for baseball, if it's a daytime game, I'll shoot it as high as 8,000, which will essentially freeze frame the baseball, like so you can actually see the threads and the logo on there. But as you get down to 1,000 or 1,600, you'll start to see some motion on that. Football and soccer, those you don't really have to shoot any higher than about 1,600 for not to get too like motion blur. So that allows for lower light conditions, but still brighter pictures. Because sometimes, if it's too dark, it'll ruin the picture, and if you try to boost it up, it just looks kind of bad. So you've probably tried to do that on your iPhone before, and it just gets all grainy and doesn't look good.
You've really made this a really efficient process, it sounds like.
Well, like I said earlier, like if you don't do it that same day, a lot of people just won't do it at all.
You forget about it, or it's like not a priority anymore.
You've moved on to the next thing. And
then people aren't interested because they'll start posting their own stuff that they shot on their iPhone from the stands. And you're like, oh man, I had a way better picture than that.
Right. So is this opened up? I have to know, is this opened up requests for like, will you come take our family holiday photo?
It has. Like I'm not really like, I like doing sports, but I've gotten pulled in, like I've shot somebody's wedding before, and and I've done family photo here and there, but I prefer just to do in the sports. Like I don't like to get people all set up. And then after the team wins, like my kids play baseball, and a lot of times they're winning a tournament. We'll take a team photo at the end. So I'll do that.
Do you ever feel like you're taking the pictures, but you aren't getting to watch what's going on?
That's a great question. And, I do feel that. I just had this conversation with somebody the other day. It's like, I look through that viewfinder through the whole game, and I feel like, I'm right there on the sideline, which is great.
Right. I mean, you're there.
But what did I miss the big picture as part of that? Yeah, I think I feel a little bit like that sometimes. Like I missed, seeing them kind of play a field where I'm just kind of focused on everything.
Yeah. That's, I struggle with that as I'm watching my kids' sports, am I going to take pictures of this or record this, or am I just going to experience it? And if I usually, they're not even in the photo.
It's a trade-off. I mean, it's also cool to be able to walk by and give your kid a high five on the sideline after they did play, did well, and then, it's just kind of fun being that close to the action and the coaches and the players. So I enjoy that part too.
It gives you that accessibility that the average parent probably isn't, because it's intimidating to look at this. What is this 16-inch telephoto lens that we're looking at on the table?
Yeah.
I mean, I assume that gets you into a lot of places.
Yeah, it has actually. Yeah. It's basically like walking in with a clipboard.
Just gives you that sense of authority, which I mean, you already have that in your constitution, in your face. So I can imagine. Well, I'd love to talk a little bit about the technique of capturing these action shots. So we've already talked about the camera settings. What do you do to kind of get yourself in position to find that perfect shot? I mean, you're talking about being as close as possible. So that's probably
Some
part of it. But
yeah.
Talk to me about like finding the action and like framing a photo.
Well, sometimes you get lucky and you're in the right spot at the right time. And so, it's just being ready to take the shot. But like with baseball, there's certainly different
We've got some
different
pictures
spots.
up here that
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
there's some pictures there. Yeah, that's
if you're watching this on YouTube that you can see that we can kind of speak to a
Yeah,
little
that's
bit.
pretty cool.
We've got some baseball
Wow.
shots here. Yeah, we're seeing the freeze frame versions of them. So
yeah. I mean, it's a lot of time is kind of moving around and for baseball, like I said, there's different places you want to position yourself. Usually they say kind of the best place to be for that is like right down the first base line,
Okay.
right by first base, which
Mm.
lets you you can shoot down the line to get the batter, or you can kind of shoot the player going into first or stealing second. I also like to shoot behind home plate if I'm shooting the pitcher, for example, to get a shot of them. Third baseline, if I want to shoot the shortstop, the second baseman, usually get a better shot of the ball and the play going to him at that point. But then for football, you kind of have to walk all over the place because you got 100 yards to cover.
Yeah.
So I usually go 10 yards behind the play or 10 yards ahead of the play, depending upon if it's on offense or defense and where I kind of think that the action is going to be. Sometimes I get it wrong. Sometimes I get it right. Again, that's why I shoot 1,000 pictures and only keep about 100 of them. So,
Right.
but it's good to kind of be there. And with soccer, it's a little easier because you can the person has the ball and you kind of know where they're going to kick it,
Oh,
right? It's going
sure.
to go straight in front of them. So you're ready to kind of pan with that and be with it. And basketball, there's really not a lot of places they can go. So I usually set up in the corner of the or behind the basket. If I'm in a place where you can be behind the basket, that's my preferable place. And you can see there, that's where I was at in that picture there.
Was this at State?
Yeah, that was at State.
Okay, because you can
Yeah.
see like the Huskers Stadium in
Yeah.
the background. That's pretty cool.
So that's a great place to be. And my lens here is actually almost too much because it would have been nicer maybe to pull back even a little bit more, but that's about as far as it goes. And then, also trying to frame up, like in this picture here, like you want to try to get like a team logo or wherever place you are kind of framed up in the picture so that you can kind of identifies
Recognize and
Jayhawks
remember where that
framed
was.
where they
there
were at. And
perfectly.
as they share it, it's like, oh, you got to play at KU. That's pretty
Uh-huh.
cool.
Yeah.
So I always try to get that in there as well.
Yeah. Love that.
Do these end up in yearbooks, news articles, graduation posters? I imagine they're used all over the place.
So we get invited to a lot of the graduations because I have some kids that are in high school. So as we go around and look at everybody's photo boards, I'm like, oh, I took that picture, I took that one, I took that one, and usually I can see them at everyone. And then, but I've had them published in newspapers, and then some of the usually during the broadcasts of some of the state football games, they've reached out and asked for some pictures for those that have been on TV. So that's kind of fun too.
Published photographer.
Yeah, who would have known, right?
Just a casual hobby.
Yeah.
Of course, like if Jeff is going to have a hobby, it's going
He's
to go
going all
like
in.
Yeah.
Gotta go all
crazy.
in. Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Are there any like inspiration resources that you found were particularly helpful? I mean, we've mentioned a couple, just like checking your camera and finding settings on that side. What about the artistic side? Is anything that you're able to kind of pull inspiration from in that vein?
As every once in a while, as you maybe saw, there was a few in there. I use a vignette, like kind of fade the corners.
I did
which,
see a couple of those.
Yeah, which kind of puts the emphasis on the middle of the photo.
Mhm.
You can tweak the colors here and there a little bit to kind of have some fun with it. But I usually try to stay true to the photo as far as what it looked like when I took it. I know a lot of people will tweak it for Instagram, and I kind of let them do that on their own. Like they can do whatever they want with it. At the end of the day, I don't really care. But as far as like where I also get some tips is there's a lot of Facebook user groups out there around sports photography that you can kind of join those groups, and people will post their pictures. I've posted a few in there, and then you hear from them like what their comments are. Some are good, some are bad. Everybody's a critique. They're critiquing you, and it's fine. But that's part of putting yourself out there. Is to be open to that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you don't take those trolls.
No, well, I think there's always room for improvement. So anything that you do. So I take the feedback. Yeah, there's always room for improvement.
Jeff is just so well-rounded and
Yeah.
just like well-adjusted. So much to learn from, Jeff. Appreciate that.
Hey, I'm still learning that. I haven't perfected this yet. I'm still working on it.
No, I look pretty close to me.
I could use you to come to a few of my sporting events.
Yeah, for real.
Well, Jeff, winding down here, do you? I'm curious if you like capture. I've seen the pictures that we were seeing. Big focus is like the athlete themselves. I'm curious about like capturing the emotions or atmosphere of like the crowd, any of that kind of stuff that you do as well to kind of like tell that story.
So when I shoot football, my favorite area to be is on the visitor side and shooting towards the home field. So that way, and I think there was a picture of it out there too, but like you saw the player and then you saw, the crowd behind it, and that always adds an element to it. Yeah, you can see. And then, I think there was a photo on there too of one of the state champions where the player was walking up to the coach and they were like, it's like, trying to get that raw emotion. Like, and if you're just following the play and then you stop after the play, you miss that.
Yeah.
So you have to stick with it and be ready for that kind of after effect of what happens. And I think, it all goes to telling the whole story at the end of the day.
Yeah, such a smart move because you were on the other side. You would see a crowd full of disappointed people.
Yes,
and it just kind of kills the kills the
and I've screwed that up before. Like, gosh darn it, why am I over here?
Yeah.
But
things you wouldn't have thought of.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, any memorable like experiences or challenge that you've faced out there? I mean, I feel like I've seen sports photographers just like get flattened by players, like anything like that.
I've gotten bumped into many of times.
Yeah.
Like when there's a big play and I'm standing there and they'll bump right into me.
Yeah.
So there's that. But I think other things that you want to try to avoid is running out of batteries. So always carry a spare battery with you, an extra SD card just in case you fill one up. Like if you forgot to clean it off the night before, and so that's always good to have those extras with you. And then something to clean your lens. If you accidentally get it dirty, you want to make sure that's clean because that'll ruin all your photos if it's dirty.
And you don't just use your shirt, right?
No, well, I have, but I don't recommend it. But no, I have like a little spray and a little clean cloth that
you
I
don't
use
want
for it.
ruin that lens.
No, and on all these lenses, I have protective covers that go over them too. Just so if I scrape that, that's like $20 and I replace that, not the lens itself.
Good.
Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Well, any final advice for parents that are thinking about doing this, getting into taking sports photography for their kids? Anything that you would help them get started, or to just think about elevating what they do?
The best way to start shooting sports is to start shooting sports. Like you just got to jump in and start doing it, and try things out. You're going to fail, but you'll learn from it and you'll get better as you go. I mean, I wasn't this good when I started, and I think there's still room to get a lot better from where I'm at. So it's just, you got to keep working on it. It's like an art.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely an art.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, thanks for sharing it with us today. I think we learned a lot about how we can approach this ourselves, whether we're taking pictures of our kids' sporting events or apparently weddings and all the action there. I know that. I mean, I can imagine seeing the bouquet in the air is probably pretty similar to capturing a baseball.
So I captured all that action. Trust me.
Well, thanks again for being here.
Yeah,
Appreciate it. Thanks, Becca. Thanks, Hilary. I want to thank our co-producer, Scott and Ann. And thank you, listeners. We appreciate you and want to hear from you, too. We're still accepting listener questions to feature on our show. So check out our new website at nfm.com/podcasts, where you can submit questions, photos, voice memos, whatever you got. Essentially, we're offering free advice here. So again, that website is nfm.com/podcasts. We want to hear from you. And finally, remember, home life is what you make it.
Thanks for joining us today for I Am Home with Tyler Weisskopf, Hilary Waltemath, and Becca Sudbeck. No one knows home quite like NFM. So if you'd like more information on home design at NFM, please check out nfm.com and leave us a review on the podcast platform of your choice.